I still remember the night the phone rang. It was just past 2 a.m., and the silence of my apartment in Berlin was broken by the sharp vibration on the nightstand. My instincts told me this wasn't good news. Calls at that hour never were. "Detective Weber," the voice on the other end said. "We've got another one." I sat up instantly. I didn't need him to explain. For weeks, whispers of a crew tearing through Germany in a stolen Audi RS6 had been circulating in every precinct. They were fast, ruthless, and precise. Banks, armored vans, jewelry stores, it didn't matter. They hit and vanished before patrol units even started their engines. The officer continued. "Frankfurt. High-speed pursuit. They ran through a police blockade, gone in seconds. We've got wreckage, witnesses, but not them." I rubbed my eyes, but there was no point in going back to sleep. My gut told me this was different. This wasn't just another chase. Something about the way this crew operated, it was too clean, too perfect. As I pulled on my jacket, one thought repeated in my head. If I didn't stop them soon, someone was going to die. By the time I reached Frankfurt, dawn was just breaking. The city looked quiet from a distance, but the flashing blue lights of patrol cars told another story. The Audi RS6 was gone, of course. What they left behind was chaos. A wrecked police cruiser lay sideways on the road, its front crushed like a soda can. The blockade hadn't stood a chance. Shattered glass sparkled on the asphalt, catching the first light of morning. I walked over to one of the officers still catching his breath. His face was pale, eyes wide, adrenaline still in his veins. "They came out of nowhere," he said, voice trembling. "We didn't even see them until it was too late. That car, it's like a rocket. Black, tinted windows, no plates. They hit us at full speed and kept going like nothing happened." I crouched near the debris, running my fingers over a twisted piece of metal. It wasn't from the police car. It was from their Audi. A sliver of the monster we were chasing. Behind me, another officer added. "They knew the roads. Every turn, every camera location. Like they had the map in their heads." That detail stuck with me. Knowledge that precise didn't come from luck. It meant inside help, or weeks of planning. As I stood up, the cold morning air filled my lungs. The city was waking up, but for me, the hunt was just beginning. And I had the feeling these men weren't just thieves. They were soldiers playing a different kind of war. Back at headquarters, I pinned a fresh map of Germany to the board. Red strings, notes, and crime scene photos were already spreading like a spider's web across it. Every strike by the crew was marked with a black pin. Berlin. Hamburg. Dortmund. Now Frankfurt. Each job was different, sometimes a bank, sometimes an armored van, but the signature was always the same, the Audi RS6, black, silent, untouchable. I reviewed the files again. Security footage was almost useless. They drove too fast, always avoided the cameras. When they did appear, the car was just a blur, headlights flashing like a predator in the night. But one thing caught my eye. The distances between their jobs weren't random. They moved across Germany like chess players, never striking too close to their last hit, never returning to the same city twice. Someone knocked on my office door. It was Muller, a young officer with more energy than experience. He tossed a file onto my desk. "New witness," he said. "Claims he saw them ditch a car 2 nights ago. Says the Audi wasn't the only one." I opened the file. Inside were shaky photos of a second car, smaller, less flashy, a gray Volkswagen Golf. My eyes narrowed. So that was their trick. The RS6 was the hammer, but the Golf was the ghost. A switch car. Unnoticed, blending into traffic. For the first time in weeks, I felt the edge of hope. Maybe, just maybe, they weren't invincible after all. 2 nights later, I found myself in the back of a smoke-filled bar on the outskirts of Leipzig. The kind of place where the music is loud, the lights are low, and the people don't ask questions. Across the table sat my contact, an informant I'd used before. His name was Victor, A wiry man with sharp eyes that missed nothing. He had one of those faces that could slip into a crowd and vanish, which made him useful and dangerous. He leaned closer, lowering his voice. "You're looking for the RS6 boys, aren't you?" I didn't answer. I just stared at him until he smirked. "Word is, they're ex-military. Not just any soldiers. Special units. Balkans, maybe. They know tactics, weapons, strategy. That's why your cops can't touch them." I clenched my jaw. That would explain their precision. Their discipline. Victor took a sip of his drink before continuing. "They've got a hideout near the border. Old warehouse, abandoned. But they don't stay long, always moving, always ahead. They've got a man on the inside feeding them routes, police schedules, everything." That last part hit me like a punch to the chest. An insider. Someone in uniform. I leaned forward, my voice like steel. "Who?" Victor only smiled, sliding his empty glass across the table. "Information like that doesn't come cheap, detective." I knew the game. And I knew this was the first real crack in the case. But paying his price meant playing with fire. Back at headquarters, I couldn't shake Victor's words. "They've got a man on the inside." I gathered my team for a briefing, but as I scanned the room, suspicion gnawed at me. Who among these uniforms might be feeding our enemy? Every face looked normal, professional, but betrayal never wore a uniform you could recognize. Miller, eager as always, suggested tightening communication channels. "From now on, only this room knows about upcoming operations. No leaks, no chatter." It was a good idea. But if the rat was already here, then everything we said would still reach the crew. Later that night, I sat alone in my office, the city lights glowing beyond the window. I replayed the robberies in my head, every decision the crew had made. They always knew exactly when to strike, exactly when police would be stretched thin elsewhere. That kind of intel didn't come from guesswork. Then a file landed on my desk, anonymous delivery. No note, no signature. Inside was a photograph, the Audi RS6, parked in a dark alley, half its plate visible. But the real shock wasn't the car. It was the figure standing next to it. A man in plain clothes, but wearing a police-issued holster. My chest tightened. The rat wasn't just theory anymore. He was real. And closer than I thought. The next morning, I called Miller into my office. His young face lit up when he walked in, expecting news, but I kept my expression cold. "We're running an operation," I said. "Confidential. Only you and I know." I laid out a fake plan, a cash transport convoy moving near Stuttgart, supposedly vulnerable. It was bait, meant to flush out our insider. Muller nodded eagerly, writing everything down. His loyalty seemed genuine, but that was the point of the test. I wanted to see where the information went once it left this room. Hours later, I sat in an unmarked car on a dark hillside overlooking the convoy route. The night was quiet, too quiet. My heart pounded as the minutes dragged on. Then headlights. A black silhouette tore down the road, engine growling like a predator. The RS6. They had taken the bait. My radio crackled. "Units in pursuit!" But I already knew it was useless. The Audi danced on the asphalt, dodging every move, vanishing into the night like smoke. Still, it confirmed my worst fear. The leak was real. And whoever the insider was, he had just delivered my fake plan straight into the bandits' hands. But now, I wasn't just hunting them. I was hunting him. The failed sting left the precinct in chaos. Officers were furious, embarrassed, shouting over each other about how the RS6 had slipped away yet again. But I stayed silent, watching. Listening. That night I went back to Victor. He was waiting in the same bar, smoke curling lazily above his drink. His smirk told me he already knew about the failed operation. "You're playing against ghosts," he said. "But ghosts leave shadows if you know where to look." I slammed a folder onto the table. Inside were photos of every officer who had access to the Stuttgart plan. "Which one of them is feeding the crew?" Victor leafed through the pages slowly, enjoying his power. Then he tapped a finger on one photo. Not Muller. Not any of the rookies. It was Krieger. A senior officer. Decorated. Respected. A man I'd known for years. My stomach turned. I wanted to deny it, to tear the photo from his hand. But deep down, it made sense. Krieger had access to everything. He had the authority to cover his tracks. Victor leaned back, his eyes cold. Your rat isn't just inside, detective. He's above you. The words sank like stones in my chest. If Victor was right, then this wasn't just a man betraying his badge. This was my mentor. I couldn't sleep that night. Every memory of Krieger replayed in my head, his advice, his steady hand guiding me through my first years on the force. He was the one who taught me that a badge meant trust, that we were supposed to be the line between order and chaos. And now, that same man might be tearing Germany apart from the inside. I decided to test him. The next day, I invited Krieger for coffee near headquarters. He greeted me with his usual calm smile, his uniform spotless as always. To anyone watching, we looked like two colleagues sharing a break. But under the table, my fists were clenched so tight my nails dug into my palms. I hear you've been chasing shadows, he said casually, stirring his drink. The RS6 crew, yes? I nodded. They're always one step ahead. Almost as if... I paused, letting my eyes lock with his. Someone's warning them. For just a flicker, less than a heartbeat, I saw it, the tightening of his jaw, the way his hand froze on the spoon. Then, just as quickly, he smiled again. You're letting paranoia get to you, Weber, he said smoothly. Careful. That kind of thinking will eat you alive. We parted ways, but I knew. That flicker was all I needed. Krieger was the leak. My mentor, my betrayer. And if I was going to bring him down, I'd need to outsmart both him and the bandits he was protecting. Days of surveillance finally paid off. A gray Volkswagen Golf, the crew's switch car, was spotted near an abandoned warehouse on the outskirts of Dresden. I didn't tell Krieger. I didn't tell anyone I didn't trust. Just Muller and two other rookies I knew couldn't possibly be involved. We rolled out in unmarked cars under the cover of night, headlights off, engines low. The warehouse loomed in the distance, broken windows glowing faintly from the inside. Shadows moved within. I tightened my grip on my sidearm. We slipped closer. Through the crack of a rusted door, I saw it, gleaming under a flickering light. The black Audi RS6. The beast itself. But it wasn't alone. 3 masked men were inside, moving with military precision. One checked weapons. Another studied maps spread across a table. The third leaned against the car, calm, confident, as if he knew we were already there. Then my blood ran cold. Because stepping out of the shadows, joining them like he belonged, was Krieger. Not as an informant. Not as a rat on the sidelines. But as part of the crew. Muller whispered. Mein Gott, it's him. I forced myself to stay still, every instinct screaming to storm in. But charging now would mean suicide. They were armed, ready, and faster than us. So I pulled Muller back into the dark. We wait, I hissed. We watch. And when they move, we take them down. But deep inside I knew. Waiting might cost us everything. We didn't wait long. At dawn, the warehouse doors groaned open and the Audi RS6 roared to life, black paint shimmering in the morning haze. Krieger slid into the driver's seat like he had been born behind the wheel. The others piled in with military sharpness. My pulse hammered. This was it. Muller, call it in, I whispered, starting our unmarked car. But keep it off the main channel. Only our people. The RS6 peeled out, tires screaming against the cracked pavement, and we followed at a distance. For a moment I thought we had them. But Krieger wasn't just driving, he was hunting. The Audi accelerated, weaving through traffic with terrifying ease. Every move was calculated, sudden turns, near misses, perfect control. He knew the roads better than the back of his hand. We pushed our car to the limit, But it was like chasing lightning with a candle. "Muller, he's playing with us," one of the rookies shouted as the RS6 disappeared into a tunnel. Then, headlights behind us. My stomach dropped. 2 more cars. Not police. Getaway support. They boxed us in, forcing us to slam on the brakes. By the time we broke free, the Audi was gone, swallowed by the city. The radio erupted with updates, sightings, collisions, chaos spreading through Dresden. But I knew the truth before anyone said it. Krieger had outsmarted us again. And this time, he wanted me to know it. For 2 days, Dresden burned with rumors. The RS6 crew had hit an armored truck, clean and fast, vanishing with millions. The city was humiliated, the press screaming for answers. And Krieger? He was still wearing his badge, walking the halls of headquarters like nothing had happened. Every time I saw him, my blood boiled hotter. But then came the break. Victor called me from a payphone, his voice low and urgent. "They're leaving Germany. Tonight. Border crossing near Gorlitz. Krieger's driving. If you don't move now, they'll disappear forever." I didn't hesitate. I rallied Muller and the rookies, the only ones I trusted. We armed up and rolled out, silent, no official channels, no backup. The border roads were empty, moonlight painting the asphalt silver. My hands gripped the wheel until my knuckles turned white. And then I heard it, deep, thunderous, unmistakable. The Audi RS6. It flew past us like a black missile, taillights burning red in the night. "Go!" I roared, slamming the accelerator. Tires screamed, the engine wailed, the chase was on. But this time, it wasn't just another pursuit. This was the endgame. Either Krieger fell tonight, or I did. The border road was a blur of shadows and steel. The Audi RS6 tore ahead, its engine howling like a beast unleashed. We chased with everything our car had, but Krieger was faster, sharper, every swerve, every gear shift, like a blade cutting the night. Muller shouted over the roar. "We'll never catch him!" But I wasn't listening. My eyes locked on the glint of metal ahead, spikes I had laid myself hours earlier, a desperate gamble. Krieger didn't know. The Audi hit them at full speed. Tires burst, sparks erupted, and the beast spun out of control, screaming across the asphalt before slamming into a guardrail. Silence followed, heavy and unreal, broken only by the hiss of the ruined engine. I stumbled out of the car, gun drawn, heart pounding. Smoke curled from the wreck. The crew crawled from the wreckage, battered but alive, except Krieger. He stood by the driver's door, blood on his forehead, gun in his hand. His eyes found mine. "You should have stayed blind, Weber," he rasped. "We could have owned this country together." I leveled my weapon, every muscle trembling. "You taught me what the badge meant. And you're the one who destroyed it." For a long second, the night froze. 2 men, once student and mentor, now predator and prey. Then he raised his weapon. The shot rang out. When the smoke cleared, Krieger lay on the road, motionless. His gun still in his hand. The others were dragged away in cuffs, sirens finally wailing in the distance. But I didn't hear them. I just stared at the wrecked Audi, its black body crumpled and broken. The beast was dead. Yet deep inside I knew the scars it left, on the city, on the force, on me, would never heal. That night, I didn't feel like a hero. I just felt like a man who had lost too much to finally win.